I don't understand forgiveness. I don't understand how to do it. I don't understand the function of it very much. Um, I just don't understand it. And I was raised in a church where forgiveness was about removing accountability and placing responsibility on the person who was harmed. And so I think that really messed up my idea of forgiveness. And I want to learn how, because I think it's a valuable skill that not many people are taught how to do. And if you're like me, you might feel shame about not understanding it or knowing how, but I'm trying to remove that shame because I wasn't taught. So hopefully we can learn together. Hi, my name is Sunflower. I'm an autistic and disabled person. I'm practicing reading out loud, and right now I'm reading 12 Steps to Changing Yourself in the World, an abolitionist handbook by Patrisse Cullors. And it is really teaching me about a lot of interpersonal relationship skills that I didn't learn because I grew up around people who didn't, also similarly, were not taught and didn't want to, they didn't want to be different from the community that they were in because being different was an unsafety. And so I really would like to learn a proper way to forgive for me and for the people around me because it will help us all. Okay, anyways, as I ramble on, I hope you're here with me. Step number 5 to the 12 steps to changing yourself in the world. I highly recommend this book so you can read the other ones. But step number 5 is forgive actively, not passively. The interpersonal work it takes to build community, to be comfortable and uncomfortable with each other, to learn how to come as our whole selves, to figure out how to hold space for all of these whole selves, to hold ourselves and each other accountable, to affirm and support each other and enjoy each other's company. It takes time. It's a vital part and practice of working towards justice. This is a quote by Badass Visionary Healers. What does it mean to forgive actively versus passively? You're being demoted at work because of a careless mistake someone on your team made. Can you forgive, knowing that your entire household will be changed by this? A friend has commented on your body in a way that is very offensive. Can you forgive? If you do, can you forgive passively or actively? A driver, distracted, hits your car, causing damage and injuries. Can you forgive? If you do, can you forgive passively or actively? A neighbor speeding hits and injures your pet. Can you forgive? If you do, can you forgive actively or passively? A partner cheats on you. Can you forgive? If you do, can you forgive actively or passively? Someone murders your loved one. Can you forgive? If you do, can you forgive actively or passively? What if you were the person who did all these things? Would you want to be forgiven? We tend to think of forgiveness as a singular thing, done in a singular way. Someone apologizes, you accept and forgive and move on. However, it's not quite that simple. Do you know where the person was coming from? What kind of hurt they may have been going through? Is it important? What frame of mind were you in during this grievance? Does that matter? It all does. Forgiving passively means you accept it and forget. Forgiving actively means you become part of the process, even if it's uncomfortable. Let's say a friend doesn't hold up their end of the bargain on a project. They apologize. You accept and move on. Except then it happens again. Because you were passive with your forgiveness, You never got to a step where you were healed, not just scarred. The best apology comes with action. Forgiving someone actively comes with action steps. If you truly want to forgive someone, you want them to be better. Forgiveness is rooted in the idea that we value each other and we are committed to each other's growth, healing, and transformation. Forgiveness provides a pathway towards self-reflexiveness. When we persist in forgiveness, we open up the space for the healing of our past and the healing of our future. As the badass visionary healer stated in the quote at the beginning, this is the bedrock of building community. Forgiving actively gives the forgiver an agency that is often unmet when we hold on to what or who has harmed us. When we are unable to forgive, or when we are hell-bent on holding on to a lack of forgiveness, we create a cycle of apathy at best and revenge at worst. Unfortunately, so many of the tenets of forgiveness have been weaponized under a banner of religion or capitalism. My mother was disfellowshipped by the Jehovah's Witness religion she had belonged to. She and her children were shunned by the community. The culture dictated that no one in good standing could look her in the eye, shake her hand, offer her good tidings during services. Still, she attended services, hoping she would be forgiven. As is custom, she wrote a letter asking to be reinstated. The answer was no. I watched this approach to forgiveness. Someone who believed, someone who tried, someone who gave their money and support. There was no forgiveness for imagined sins, passive or active forgiveness. It made a distinct impression on me. I didn't want to be part of any religion that treated its believers that way. We are taught to forgive the person who committed horrific acts of harm against us in our community, and we are taught that the person who committed those harms doesn't have to be held accountable. We are taught a forgiveness that doesn't honor our own pain and hurt, but focus solely on the person who harmed us. In fact, forgiveness is often offered as a way to get out of accountability. The forgiveness I am calling for is a forgiveness that actually relies on an abolitionist praxis. When we are in the forgiveness driver's seat, we begin to see that through forgiveness, we are allowed to forge new roads that are paved with compassion, decisiveness, and love. Forgiveness is not about cowardice or catering to our oppressors. In abolitionist forgiveness identifies a move away from holding on to the toxicity of sorrow and victimhood. Abolitionist forgiveness becomes a pillar and tool we can use to create the healing conditions for our loved ones, as well as make demands for accountability for harm we have experienced. We also don't want to practice forgiveness prematurely. There have been times that I extended such forgiveness in interpersonal relationships without the work that allows for forgiveness to be a seed that plants and grows new dynamics. In those instances, I recognized that the rush to forgiveness bred rotten roots of resentment. The work we do to forgive each other and ourselves has long-standing impacts on healing and growth. It provides the foundation for believing human beings can transform from the dominant toxic environment we have all ingested. Forgiveness is a practice, much like the other practices in this book. It ebbs and flows. Forgiveness is not a race to be the most abolitionist. This is a patient road that pushes us to drive slowly, because the impact of moving too quickly can cause major damage. Our forgiveness can take so many shapes. It can be something you have to actively work on every day in order to truly lean into the practice. Or forgiveness can be a practice that comes easily and with full grace and love. I have experienced forgiveness in its practice in a multitude of ways. As a young child, I resented my mother. I was completely hurt and devastated that she didn't spend time with me, something I perceived as her inability to prioritize her children. Through abolitionist forgiveness, I realized my mother sacrificed her joys and her life to prioritize us solely. Not only was I able to forgive her, but my bitterness transformed into compassion, and I was able to be a participant in a transformative dynamic between the both of us. Forgiveness pushes us toward each other. It makes us name where we are at in our dynamic, and it opens up space for a continued healing journey. Let's go back to one of the examples listed at the beginning of this chapter. You're being demoted at work because of a careless mistake someone on your team made. Can you forgive, knowing that your entire household will be affected by this, will be changed by this? If your income and lifestyle are affected, how can you even passively forgive, much less actively? The truth is, you can. It's not easy, but you can. Talk it out in therapy. Talk it out with your circle. Write out how active forgiveness can keep you healthy and whole. Think about how this demotion could lead to better opportunities. There are always better things when we try active forgiveness. There's a lot more in this chapter, but I'm going to skip some of the sections and go to the end. I highly recommend you read this book and you read all of the chapters to here and these as well. But the next section is what to read, watch, see, and hear. The next is what I know. Another is how we will grow, and the real world. I'm going to read the real world for us. Actually, I'm going to read how we'll grow and the real world, but there is quite a bit in between. So again, highly recommend going to the library, seeing if they have this. If they don't, requesting it or purchasing it directly from Patrice Color's website, which I'll put in the description, along with other mutual aid projects that you can support, including me and my household. We are disabled autistic people trying to move, and we would like some help with our moving costs if you can and if you want. So I'm going to finish reading this. Thank you for listening. How we'll grow. We practice forgiveness because the shape of white supremacist patriarchy is about punishing ourselves and each other when we feel harmed. The system of punishment orients itself around an enemy that is not only unforgivable, but also unlovable and untransformable. So we practice to center love and transformation. We practice forgiveness so we can deepen our commitment to a transformed self, collective, and world. We deepen our faith in humanity when we center forgiveness, and we create narratives that are rooted in trust and honesty versus distrust and suspicion. I grew up in a community largely pushed out and punished by laws that were created to keep us at the margins. If your own government does not trust you and is hell-bent on attacking and undermining you, this has grave consequences emotionally. When I feel emotionally unsafe or vulnerable, it is more difficult for me to show up fully for my people. We practice so the communities we live in can undo the burden of personal failure and understand that so much of what has failed us is the system, not ourselves. We practice forgiveness so we can take back our own humanity. Cancel culture has produced dangerous environments for young people. I am much more interested in forgiveness culture. How, who, and why we forgive tells us a lot about what our future lives can potentially be like. Can you think of someone right now that you are at odds with? You don't need to necessarily approach them, but think of what forgiveness would look like. Could you even forgive them at all? Even passively? Is there space in you to work on forgiving them actively? What would that look like? Ask a friend or someone you trust to share with you a situation where it's difficult to actively forgive someone. Based on your readings, what do you see? Is this situation, based on what you now know, worthy of active forgiveness? Should it be left alone entirely? Talk it out, as much as you both feel comfortable doing. The real world. In the real world, you can't forgive actively or passively if you're not taking care of yourself. So, I was asked if I would talk about the practice of self-care in this book. I rolled my eyes as hard as I could. Honestly, I don't like the term self-care. I know that Black feminist thought developed the concept as a revolutionary principle. I know that Audre Lorde famously said that self-care is a radical and political act, which it is. However, it's also a little bubble-filled tub sticker that comes with your planner. It's also used ironically. That third glass of wine is self-care, people say with a wink. All those things may very well work for you. Most of them work for me. However, the actual terminology has been co-opted and watered down. Yes, take care of yourself. It's really not just for self, it's for everyone. Let's just call it caring for yourself. Yes, caring for yourself, whatever that looks like, builds the foundation for you to show up with the capacity to actually forgive, to actively forgive. I'm going to read that again because I need that for me. Yes, caring for yourself, whatever that looks like, builds the foundation for you to show up with the capacity to actively forgive. Pretty much everything you do in abolitionist work will be dependent on caring for yourself. Guiding questions. Is there someone in your life you want to forgive, but you don't know how to? What do you understand about forgiveness and its role in your community and family? What is hard about forgiveness? Is there someone you need to ask for forgiveness? If so, who? Why? Write out how you plan on practicing this principle. I'm going to immediately talk about what I get from this question, what is hard about forgiveness, and feel free to answer any of those in the comments. I would love to know any of your perspectives, but for me, what is hard about forgiveness is that every time I've been asked to forgive, I still feel too harmed. And so I feel sometimes when I'm asked to forgive, it feels like I'm being asked to perform self-betrayal. So I think that's why I haven't really done it, because when I was forced to practice forgiveness, or the, a passive form of forgiveness, which is just forgetting it happened, when I was forced to just forget what happened and move on without accountability, that felt like an external betrayal, but it's not a betrayal to forget the things that we were forced to forget, but it does sometimes feel like then I don't get to know who I am. And so what's hard about forgiveness for me is that in order to do it, I'm going to have to fully find out who I am and what I need to forgive, because I've thought so much and I have so much amnesia that to identify, I think for me what's hard about forgiveness is to fully identify the harm, the how and why of what harmed me, because yeah, it's really difficult to identify how and why harm happens to ourselves and to others. And so I think I that's the journey I'm on right now towards active forgiveness, is the how and why I was harmed. And so I can either hold the person who harmed me accountable, and choose to walk the active road of forgiveness with them, or walk the active road of forgiveness with myself as I heal all of the harms, the hows and whys of the harms inside of myself with my chosen family. So thank you for being here with me. The link to the book is in the description. and also my Venmo and links to where you can buy prints or paintings. Okay, that's all for today. Love you. Bye.